Okay, so a quick note before we get started. This tutorial is primarily intended for people who have worked with sound and game development in the past, and will assume that you have at least basic knowledge of Unity and C# and are familiar with FMOD. So today we will go through the entire process from start to finish. And we'll do that taking a look at a game I'm working on with Crimson Herring Studios, the upcoming Sovereign Syndicate. So if you'd like to check that out, I will leave a link to it in the description. Alright, so essentially we want a couple of things. We want to set up layers and tags in our Unity project to designate the different floor types. We want to write a script which checks those tags and updates the parameters in FMOD accordingly. And we want to add this event as an animation event in Unity to trigger the function and sound to play at certain frames in those animations. So let's start off with the end result. What we're looking for is to get this event to play, footsteps. And this consists of essentially a matrix here of all the possible footstep sounds. And every time you play it, you get just one. So you have two tracks, walk and run, which are controlled by the walk run parameter. And you have the terrain parameter, which controls the type of surface that you're on. So right, so I commented that in here, and essentially that's what we use to play the right sound based on the animation that's triggering it. All right, so the way the two tracks work is the walk and run are controlled by the, here we go, by this guy over here. And when we are set to 0, for example, our audio is turned up for the walk track and down for the run track, and vice versa. So you might have noticed when I update the parameter here, you can see that reflected in the volume levels here as well. So how do we do that? All right, so let's get started, jump right into FMOD and create our footsteps event. So here under character, I'm gonna create a 3D timeline event, which is because we want it positioned in the world in 3D space, and we want to go ahead and call that footsteps. I cannot spell, and assign it directly to a bank. Just a good habit to get into. All right, we're ready to go. Now, like we saw, the end result is we want two tracks which are simultaneously playing walk and run and switching between those two. So we're going to create those first. And then we want to create our parameters to control how these, how these respond. So I'm going to start off with terrain. I'm going to head up here, create a new parameter. We want it to be discrete, which is an integer. We don't need continuous, which is a float with decimals, because we're just switching between concrete values. It's not going to be, 1.5 wood, something like that. So I'm going to call that terrain. No, I'm not. Oops. Got a couple steps here. We're going to want a total of 6 different options. So we're going to update the range here. Initial value, we're going to start with 0 as our default. And this can be local, which is good because each different character can be walking on different surfaces. There's not just one value for this for all characters. So we want to hold the value during playback. So we let those footsteps finish playing once they start. And now we're actually done. Yes, let's go ahead and just fill this up then with our sounds first. So I'm going to open up our audio bin. I've already got those plugged in here. Going to start off with our notes so we know what's going on. We're going to do stone. Cool. Made it. And now let's go ahead and fill these up. So same thing, we'll set up a discrete parameter for, let's call it walk run. It's going to be discrete because it's just 2 options. Same thing as before. And what we want to do is we want an automation on the volume for each track. And we say, all right, when walk run is 0, why is this called parameter 0? When walk run is 0, we want walk to be the one we hear. So we just just held control and clicked to set those automation points. We don't want to hear that one when we're on run, and vice versa. We don't want to hear walk when we're running, and so on. Cool, and that is actually it. So now when we head back here, we can see our tracks. Right now we're on walk. We should only hear walk, which is correct. That's super loud. Maybe more like, that's a little less aggressive there. So then we can check out run as well. And we see it's doing what we want it to. So cool. That is then ready to go. Jump over to Unity now. I'm gonna look at the opium den scene for the example today. And here, the reason is when you start off, you come in here and you start off on stone. Right away, you can walk on some wood and hear that effect. How does this all work? So in Unity, essentially, you need to make sure that your player character can collide with the floor. So when you do a raycast, which comes out from the bottom of your character and checks what's underneath it, when that happens, Unity needs to know that those things are allowed to collide, so you can check that. So you do that in the project settings, go into physics, and here you've got the collision matrix. You double check, okay, my player is allowed to, boom, here, to collide with my ground layer. All right, cool. So we then want to make sure that all of our floor layers that we're colliding with then have tags, which update then the FMOD parameter. And those are here. For example, you see I've got stone on this bad boy over here. These wooden planks are wood. We need to add more. You just head into here and you add surfaces as needed. Yeah, so then once those are all set up, the next thing you're going to have to do is head over to Script Town. It's going to be time to make this all come to life. And we do that with our character footstep script here. And I'll link this as well, so you can just grab that and have a look. But we definitely recommend sticking with me through the description here, because it's important to know what all these things are doing in case you need to tweak them down the line. All right, so let's jump into the script. Now, if you need to create a new script, you can go here into your project, wherever you have that saved, and go create C# script and then name it. I have mine already though, F character footsteps. Let's jump in and take a look at what that does. All right, so here we've got our character footsteps script. This will get attached to anybody who can make footsteps. And the logic is essentially, we want to scan the tag of the surface underneath us. We want to update those FMOD parameters, and we want to play the event and then release it from memory. So to do that, we need a few things. We need to set our variables up, which we've done here. I'll go through those in just a moment. Then at the start, we're going to assign those values to those parameter IDs, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Then we have to find a few functions here. We have to find material check, which does that update that we talked about based on the tag. And that kicks off the functions play run event and play walk event, which are the star of our show here. They're the ones that end up getting attached to the animations and actually get called. And they are identical except for one thing. What they do is they start off with material check. They create an instance of an event based on the event path that we gave up above. And then we attach it to our self, which is what this transform does. And we get the rigid body component to get the physics information as well, so that the audio engine is able to play that back with 3D positioning in real space. So what we then do is we have now our event, it's attached, we know our materials. So, okay, we actually set our parameter, and then that being terrain, and then we set walk run parameter, and then we play it with start, and then we release it from memory with release. That's what it does. Now you might have already noticed here, can be used as alternative to IDs. At the end, I'm going to go over using parameter IDs, but for simplicity's sake, we can start off just using parameter names, and that looks like this. We take our event instance, which is run. We set parameter by name, terrain, and we give it material value, which is then that integer 0 through 5. We can do the same then for walk run by just saying, all right, run, set parameter by name, walk run, and then we remember walk run, one is run, and yeah, ignore seek speed, fine, don't need it. Then that is good. Then we could theoretically do just that, and then we can do it all just by name, nice and simple. There is a reason why you'd want to use the IDs, but we'll go into that at the end there. But for now, we'll just leave it as it is there. And take a look at material check, how that works. So basically, this starts off with an if statement. It says, if my raycast collides with something, which it should, the floor, then execute everything that comes underneath it. Okay, and everything that comes underneath it includes a switch, which basically takes a look at the tag and handles different cases based on what it returns. So if the tag is stone, for example, we tell it, okay, update material value to 0. If it's metal, update it to 1, 2, 3, and so on. And that variable is then used in the play walk run, play walk event and play run event functions. What we have up here is, what I recommend is you can always, in Visual Studio or in, I assume most IDEs, if you hover over a function, you can see the arguments that it takes, what goes into it. So you can see what all these things are that are included. And that is the start point. So the transform dot position is the position of self, which is this this character basically. And we tell it to point the raycast downward. Output the information of what we collide with into the variable RH. We say, okay, how long should the raycast be? That's the variable distance. And then what's the layer mask, LM? And we defined all that above. For example, layer mask is needed to know if the layers are allowed to collide, which we checked that they are. Yeah, so let's take a look at those variables. We just got a little sneak peek at all of them. Basically, we've got material value, which is our integer that goes to FMOD. We use that here, right? We've got RH, like I said, that holds the information of what we hit with the raycast. We have distance, which is how long the raycast is. Event path, which is our footsteps, which was used a few times. And then we set parameter IDs 1 and 2. Again, later we'll go into how to get those. Yeah, and that ought to do it for the basic logic of the script. Now let's keep plugging along. All right, so then let's jump into the Unity project and make sure all of our characters have that script we made attached so that they are able to access those play walk event and play run event functions from the animation keyframes. So here I've got our little prefabs, and I will just add that like so. Make sure everybody's got it. This fella needs it still. Little Teddy. And yeah, so make sure you get them attached, and then when those animation events happen, they can use those functions. Now let's jump over to the animations and see how that works. We're going to want to head to our animations and make sure that we are calling this play walk event and play run event. And so the way you do that is like this. We go to our animations, and here's jogging, for example. Our little guy jogging, looking good. We have a few moments where your foot hits the ground. So right at the beginning was one, and then there's another one. Sorry, that's the first one rather. Boom, 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 and so on. And so the way you do that is, as you saw, I go to the animation itself. Make sure you're in animation, scroll down, and then open up the events here. And then, for example, I'm just going to delete that one. Let's say there's my step. All right, I'm going to add an event. And we're running, so I'm going to use the play run event function. It knows about this function because the object that is doing this animation has the footstep script attached as a component, so it's aware of this, and we can call it, and that gets us to play. Same thing for our walking animations. I'm gonna leave that alone. Here's one where you're just walking down the stairs. I like this one because it looks very funky. You have a step here, and then same thing, you just call a walk event. And so yeah, you just want to go through your animations where there's, you know, movement, your feet scuffling around, stuff like that, where you want to hear a footstep, and you just add those like that. Yeah, then we attach that character footsteps script as a component to our player as mentioned, and then that is basically it. So let's take a little look at the scene. I went into FMOD and I already turned down the music, and I turned the footsteps way up so we can hear an exaggerated effect there. Let's take a look. Boop, boop. Here's a little robot buddy. Yes, I promise I read terms and conditions. Okay. Bye-bye, little buddy. Ah, he didn't react to that wood. Need to update that later. You caught me. Yeah, so basically we are walking around. You hear a stone, then we hit that wood. And there you got some wood. That's that. So we're happy. Everything's working. I'm stuck on the stair. Alright, now everything's working. And yeah, that's what we want. Until now, we have been using the setParameterByName function to assign a value to our terrain and walk run parameters. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to do that a different way. We're going to set it by the ID, and you know, if it's already working, why would we mess with it? Well, the reason is if we set by ID, then we are setting an integer instead of a string, and the effort required to search for that and update it is a little bit less. And since we're going to be using a lot of footsteps, it makes sense to try and be a little more efficient if we can here. So I've already commented our setParameterByName, and this is what the replacement function is going to look like here. But obviously we need this missing ingredient here, parameter ID. May have noticed earlier, I already have it, but the way I got it was like this. We set up this section here, which digs into the event description of our footstep event, goes deeper to get the parameter description, which is a part of that, which is terrain. And then we go another layer deeper and we get the ID of that parameter. And then that's expressed in two parts. So we send through debug log this information to the console, and then we are displayed the ID number for the parameter that we type in here. And so let's see what that looks like. Head over to Unity, start our scene. And there we go. So this ID then is going to be the ID number, which corresponds to the parameter named terrain. So then we do the same once again for walk run, and then we grab that number as well and we plug it in here. Okay, so the next step does not require this anymore, so we can go ahead and get rid of that again. Commented it out here. And yeah, once we have those, they'll be different for every project. So obviously you won't have the same ones as me, so you'll need to run this twice to get the IDs and then plug those in here. And param ID 1, as we see here, is for terrain. 2 is assigned for walk run. So when we run those functions here, we set it by ID 1 for terrain, and then 2 for the walk run. And that ought to do it. So thank you again if you stuck around this this far and made it. If you have any questions, go ahead and post those in the comments. Good luck and have fun making your footsteps dynamic. So thank you and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.